Today marks 1 year since the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. As people adapted to the situation, Windsor-Essex now has more access to vaccines. We'll have a check-in on where we are so far. Weeks after the Ministry of Education asked for asymptomatic testing to start in Windsor-Essex schools this weekend, it comes to the city. And a live look outside right now. Looks like we are going to have a beautiful sunset this evening. Windy out there for sure. High of 20 degrees. Those clouds clearing just in time. Colette Kennedy with a full look at the forecast tonight. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. An inmate at the Southwest Detention Center has died. The Ministry of the Solicitor General says in a statement today that 2 inmates were taken to hospital yesterday. Now, they say to us, quote, one of the inmates was pronounced deceased at hospital. The other was treated and has since returned to the facility. They wouldn't comment further, saying a number of investigations are underway. That includes a mandatory internal investigation. They say local police may investigate to determine if the death was the result of any criminal activity. A spokesperson says that should the coroner determine that the death was anything other than natural causes, an inquest would be called. Should the death result from natural causes, an inquest would be at the discretion of the coroner. Protesters took to City Hall frustrated with how the situation at the downtown Mission has been handled. This as more people who stayed at the shelter have tested positive for COVID-19. And that was after the former library site was reopened in defiance of public health orders. Jacob Barker with the latest.
Step up, help our vulnerable.
These protesters are not happy with how the city approached the need for shelter in Windsor.
To be denied access to emergency shelter, in my opinion, is a violation of human rights. If there was an error in planning, I would be open to the city accepting their responsibility for that error and asking the community how to best learn from it and then carry on.
The city has said there's room for all at its 2 sites. Protesters here support the Mission and its executive director, Ron Dunn.
His staff are there with other community partners working. So to put out there that he's not following protocols or he's going rogue or he's a rebel is absolutely untrue and very damaging to the work that he's doing.
The city blasted the Mission for reopening the library site this week after 5 people who had stayed there tested positive for COVID-19. But some searching for shelter during all of this say they were bounced back and forth between the aquatic center and the library. Ron Dunn criticized the aquatic center for not acting like an emergency shelter and turning people away. It's an accusation the city disputes. Well, today the Mission has shut this location down. Dunn saying that he's satisfied with the improvements and increased capacity at the Aquatic Center and the Salvation Army.
I think that yesterday he went and he did the right thing. He demanded to have some clear communication, and once that there was some clear communication, then he felt comfortable enough, I'm assuming. I'm not going to speak for Ron, but to be able to make that decision.
The city is set to receive nearly $6.9 million in new funding from the province for homeless shelters during the pandemic. It says it's reviewing how best to use the funds. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The medical officer of health for Windsor-Essex is on a leave of absence. Dr. Wajid Ahmed will be absent for 2 weeks. The health unit offering no further details, but the CEO says there is outside help should the area need it.
We have agreements with neighboring health units that when Dr. Ahmed's on vacation, he always has someone that we can consult. That's another medical officer of health if needed. There's other requirements that can only be completed by a medical officer of health, and so I have access to a person that assisted us before in the pandemic. So we'll work through the next the next little while.
Now, the health unit confirming 39 new cases of COVID-19 in Windsor-Essex today and another death, a 70-year-old man. Marianne also had updates on vaccine distribution. She says about 13,000 people in the 80-plus range have registered for a shot so far. 1,900 have been vaccinated at the WFCU Center, nearly 700 in Leamington, those locations booking for 3 days in advance. Now, as for pharmacies, Marinted says each location should get a tray that's equal to 500 doses. The health unit won't be dealing directly with them, but say they do inspections on their fridges. Some are already making appointments for this weekend. The health unit says they are working closely with 8 different health teams in Windsor-Essex to get them on board with access to vaccinations. People over 80 and highest risk clients, they won't release the names of those clinics until that plan is complete. Pharmacies giving out vaccinations are limited to distributing them to people from ages 60 to 64, but anyone in the province can book an appointment.
I think the vast majority are going to be in the local regions, and it's a first come, first served basis, so they will fill up pretty quick. Will there be a case of somebody coming from out of town? I think that's likely in some cases, but I think it underscores the need to get these vaccines in arms and then expand the program.
Windsor-Essex is one of the only places in southwestern Ontario part of the pilot project, which means people from places like Chatham-Kent or London area could book an appointment. One pharmacist we spoke to in Windsor says he's taken hundreds of calls this week, and he's not concerned about people outside the region trying to book an appointment.
To allay those fears, I would say that there are many doses available for the age group that we are allowed to vaccinate at this point. And I would say to book an appointment by calling your Shoppers Drug Mart store or your pharmacy that's participating and get an appointment booked right away so that we can get you vaccinated as soon as possible so we can quickly put an end to this pandemic.
Now, the vaccinations that you're getting at a pharmacy is the AstraZeneca vaccine. Today, Denmark and Norway have temporarily stopped using that vaccine. And CBC's Christine Birak explains the worries and the risks.
This side, I'm assuming everybody's here for a vaccine?
As Canadians in their early 60s line up for shots of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, some others are again questioning whether to get it or not.
If a number of countries are suspending it, what does that mean?
On top of confusion around its effectiveness in seniors, a handful of European countries have temporarily stopped offering the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine due to reports of blood clots.
This vaccine honestly can't catch a break.
The European Medicines Agency issued this statement saying there is currently no indication that vaccination has caused these conditions, adding the vaccine can continue to be administered while an investigation into cases of blood clots is ongoing.
You have to view it in the context of the number of vaccinations that are ongoing and the frequency of these events in the usual population.
As of March 10th, 30 cases of blood clots were reported, including 3 deaths in Denmark, Austria, and Italy. That's among 5 million people vaccinated with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in the European Union.
Bad things happen to people who also happen to get vaccines. And so it doesn't mean that the vaccine caused it. And so that's what they have to investigate.
A spokesperson for AstraZeneca Canada says safety data of more than 10 million records has shown no evidence of an increased risk of blood clots.
Extremely unlikely that there's any kind of issue. And even if there were, the risk from coronavirus is far greater than any risk related to this kind of problem.
And as infections rise in Canada, some provinces could soon be staring down a third wave of this virus. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Schools in Windsor are set to offer asymptomatic testing for COVID-19 the first time on Saturday, nearly 3 weeks after local boards were directed by the province to start that testing. CBC's Dan Takama has been following the story, joins us now live at one of the schools that will be on that list. Dan, a long time coming here. What are the families saying today?
Well, Chris, reaction today has been kind of mixed. Now, in just 2 days, staff and students can come here to Immaculate Conception Elementary School to get a swab. Now, on one hand, some of the parents I spoke to said they're happy that testing is going to be offered soon, but on the other hand, some feel that it's taken too long for local school boards to get started. Ontario's Minister of Education directed large boards to start testing back on February 22nd, but that start date has been pushed back by weeks here in Windsor-Essex. One parent advocate I spoke to today said this is something families have wanted for a long time.
Living in society where we are right now, there's an element of risk with everything that we do. And the idea that we would have access to asymptomatic testing and hopefully come back with negatives, we would have just that little bit of peace of mind to know that we are safe, we're doing the right thing.
Meanwhile, a local union spokesperson I talked to today said he feels that the testing is coming too late.
It's too little, too late. I mean, yeah, it would be a great news story if this happened a month ago, let's say. Then we would be celebrating that, hey, finally a ministry measure has been put in place at the right time. But right now we're dealing with symptomatic children that are coming into schools. We're dealing with symptomatic staff members that have come into the schools and they're now being told to self-isolate. So this asymptomatic testing was supposed to be preventative. We're beyond preventative. That sailed away. We're now reacting, and we're reacting in a crisis.
The testing comes about a month or so after class resumed in-person learning, and in that time, the public board says 18 people have tested positive. The Catholic board has seen 8 people test positive.
Dan, with this coming into effect, how is this going to work for students, staff, or parents?
Yeah, so testing is available to staff, students, and children who attend daycare. Now, these are nasal swabs, and they're meant for people who are learning in person and are asymptomatic. So that means that they don't have symptoms of COVID-19, but they want to get tested anyway. All 4 area boards are working together on this, and they're going to start by testing students and staff at 11 different schools here in Windsor. Now, the swabbing is going to start at 9 in the morning with staff. Then it's going to proceed by the first letter of students' last names. So the A's will be from 9:30 to 10, the B's from 10 to 10:30, and so on until about 3 p.m. Results are expected within 24 to 48 hours. Now, the boards tell us that they're working on setting up other dates and other locations for testing for other schools, and they're going to share those with families once they're ready. There's a full list of the schools that are taking part right now on our website. Chris.
Thanks, Dan. CBC's Dan Takama live tonight. More information as well on the province's newest round of modeling. New numbers show that transmission has drastically flattened in long-term care homes thanks to residents getting vaccinated. Now, there's been 1 death in the last 6 days, but health officials still warn that overall progress has stalled. Variants of concern continue to spread, and they're controlling the rate of that spread that will determine if Ontario faces that 3rd wave we've been warned about. The green line there shows what the low transmission of variants of concern would look like. The yellow showing medium spread, the purple that shows a high rate. In a worst case scenario, the modeling found that by April, the province would see case numbers hitting the 8,000 mark. It's something Ontario's Medical Officer of Health is looking at and taking action in areas of the province that are already seeing variants spread.
These issues are before us. The variants of concern are there. This morning, we have activated the emergency brake in the Public Health Sudbury and Districts region, moving them into the gray lockdown due to a number of outbreaks that have accrued very rapidly in the area, including increasing transmission of variants of concern in high-risk areas within their community. It's a clear demonstration of why in Ontario we're going to have to be very careful and move as quickly as we can to try and curtail and limit, especially these variants of concern that can rapidly impact wide parts of our population, even as we wait for vaccinations to occur.
1 year ago today, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. A new disease called COVID-19 threatened the lives of people all over the planet. Few knew how difficult a year it would be. And today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared a National Day of Observation. CBC's Simon Dingley has the story.
They lined up early this morning outside a drugstore for liquid gold, jabs of vaccine that may save their lives.
Great, easy, no pain.
But Canada has felt so much pain. More than 22,000 Canadians dead, almost 900,000 others ill.
We remember the people we've lost. Grandparents and parents, brothers and sisters, friends and colleagues. Each one was loved. Each one was special.
As the world declared war on the deadly disease, Canadian nursing homes became tinderboxes for the virus. More than 15,000 seniors died, and many were forced to stay inside, cut off from their families for months. Students hit computers instead of books as schools were shuttered. It was no longer business as usual as Canada almost ground to a halt. Many didn't recognize the cities they lived in. and masks became the fashion accessory of necessity.
I never thought in my wildest dreams we would be locked down for a year and this pandemic would drag on so long.
So long indeed. Quebec has suffered the most COVID deaths. Premier François Legault paid tribute to caregivers.
Des héros, puis on continue.
Legault called them heroes for having the courage to stay with the sick and dying. Canada has now approved 4 vaccines, but many will not get shots until summer. An Angus Reid survey asked Canadians what they're most looking forward to once the pandemic ends. The answer, a chance to hug someone. Simon Dingley, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, a year of pandemic has meant 1 year of changes around how we conduct our personal and professional lives. Health experts have been front and center, explaining what's going on and guiding the public. We asked a few of them what changes they hope to see become permanent.
Hand hygiene. People before this pandemic, I don't know if everyone was so aware of hand hygiene, but certainly that's a major priority now. I think we've also softened our views on masks. And even after the pandemic dissipates, I think we'll see many more masks being worn voluntarily during influenza season or when people are feeling unwell. And I think that's a very helpful cultural change.
What we've seen in medicine is a dramatic shift to virtual care. And that's something that for many patients has been a boon, has been a very positive thing. We've seen patients who have trouble getting to hospital, getting to clinic, be able to do their appointment virtually by video or by telephone, and that's made a huge difference in their lives. It's in some cases, it's made things easier for us too in our profession. So that's something that I think is here to stay.
Early on in the pandemic, our street got behind the 7 o'clock salute to the frontline workers. And since then it morphed into 7 o'clock checking in with your neighbors. And I hope that doesn't go back, even after we're all vaccinated.
The one thing I would like to remain the same is the resilience I've seen in Canadians being part of every aspect of how we deal with COVID. I've seen it in the emergency rooms, I've seen it in the community, the way people continue to connect, even though some places they haven't been able to connect as much. I want to see that resilience and admire it and see it displayed as we continue on, even past COVID, because we will get through this.
That resilience is a lot of something we saw here in Windsor-Essex this past year. Ontario will get its next budget on March 24th.
Our government's second pandemic budget will focus on protecting people's health. And we will have a plan. We'll continue to have a plan. And we'll follow up in every respect to a plan to defeat COVID-19.
The finance minister says there will be no cuts to public services or tax hikes down the road. He also said the province's third quarter finances show Ontario is projected to spend $25 billion more in 2021 than it did in the previous year. Another look here as the city enjoys a beautiful sunset tonight. I don't even think we can see any clouds in this shot. Colette Kennedy is going to come up next and talk a little bit about what we're looking at this weekend weather-wise. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. A few drops of rain this morning that I was feeling, but if you look outside now, not a cloud in the sky, the sun is coming down. It is just looking absolutely perfect out there.
Kind of nice for a change, right? All the active weather is into more towards central eastern Ontario. Southwestern Ontario gets a break. Just a nice day, a little sprinkle earlier, and that's it. 20 degrees, the daytime high. London at 19. Record again at Harrow. All these upper teens that we've been seeing. So some pretty incredible numbers. These are the current temperatures still hanging in there. There were upper teens and 20s as well over towards Lake Ontario, but the front going there and the heavier rain and thunderstorm activity that's to the east of us, having an impact on those temperatures. Still, I know the wind's gusty, but they'll be coming down a little more here in the next hour or two and still hanging on to the drier conditions. You can see all those lightning strikes, though, along that cold front as it moves in. Let's get this out of here. This is erroneous. I'm sorry about that. I just want to show you that that line of storms moves out. But that's cold front number 1, and then this is the next one that's going to be coming through. So it's sort of this gradual thing where we're going to be seeing the temperatures dropping back. They start to come back tonight and tomorrow and kind of level up, and then they come down a little bit more as we go into the weekend. But high pressure builds in, and it hangs around as well. So we're going to have a few days of seeing just clearer skies at night, yes, but sunshine during the day. And those winds backing off for us as well, and they do go to the northwest, so there's going to be a cooler, not only do the temperatures come down tomorrow, but I should tell you there's going to be a cooler feel. I'm sorry, but I'm having some issues here with my system, Chris, and I'm going to reset it while I'm talking to you here as things are wanting to jump into a different show and program.
Hey, this is no problem. Anytime we can go for a little travel segment here as well. We can't really get out of the house anymore, so if you could just show us what it looks like in some of these other places, I'm down for this.
Yeah, wouldn't people love that? Well, actually, we're the best weather today, no doubt about it, is southwestern Ontario. So that's where everybody wants to be. Okay, let me see if I can make this. It's live television, folks. Everybody likes to see things go a little haywire once in a while.
I think we're just bragging about our high temperatures
when it's me
here.
that they're going haywire on. There, I was able to jump ahead. I want to show you the cool down for tomorrow. 13 degrees. Sorry, everyone at home. 8 degrees. That's the slightly cooler as we go into the weekend, and then you feel it into the beginning of next week, and then it goes back up and down. It becomes that roller coaster that I'm riding, but also that is spring.
No, absolutely. Thanks again for this, Colette.
You got it.
Now, coming up, we're going to talk about some of the hobbies and pastimes that people have picked up during this year of a pandemic. That's next. 1 year in, this pandemic has inspired new pastimes, hobbies, and businesses. A Montreal teen now spends her days and nights preparing chocolate treats for clients, charities, and frontline workers. She says it's all about giving back. CBC's Kobena Oduro reports.
White chocolate, milk chocolate.
Around Christmas time, Vanessa Seabag decided to take on a new passion project, creating chocolate bombs.
I begged my mom, let's do this, mom, please.
Inspired by viral videos on social media, she decided to launch her own business, Chocolate Heaven.
My favorite, I could say, I like my chocolate bombs.
Now, with the waiting list of clients, she says that it's taken over all of her free time and even her parents' kitchen.
You open cupboards, there's chocolates. You open where my washers, there's molds everywhere. Open my fridge, there's chocolate bombs everywhere.
I mean, they don't have the choice. That's how it is, and that's how it's gonna be. If they want, they could buy a new fridge, but this is my space, my space.
Seabag has even recruited her parents to help.
My mom stays up with me until 2, 3 in the morning to make sure I'm keeping on track. She sometimes calls orders. When I'm in school, she goes open the door to clients.
But it's not all about the money. Seabag also gives some of the chocolate and the profits to help charities and frontline workers.
My principle, it's always to give back before getting. I'm always gonna, when I do a big order, I'm always gonna take a 10% or 20% and give to frontline workers.
She's my angel, and I love her.
Esther Levy is the founder of Esther's Angels, a nonprofit that provides essential services and items for families in need. She is the first person Seabag called offering to make them 90 chocolate bombs.
And actually, she answered all the calls. I received so many calls. Esther, can we have that cake, that chocolate? And all the time she said yes.
Just in my mind to think that I helped makes me feel like so good to myself.
Seabag says she doesn't know what the future will hold. One day, she's hoping to open up her own store. But for now, it's all about putting a smile on people's faces. Kobena Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
A beautiful story and some beautiful treats. If you know anyone in our area who's doing something like that, give us a shout. We're happy to highlight the people who are trying to create change here in Windsor-Essex. That's it for us tonight. If you're looking for more stories, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.